A pawnshop becomes the unwitting starting point of several tragic events, including a robbery gone wrong, an unfortunate reunion, and a deal with the devil. Alton complains to Johnson about the dark-skinned Santa Claus figure that he left in front of his pawnshop. It's already spring, far from the holidays, and Johnson doesn't even work there, so Alton thinks he shouldn't leave his belongings there. Suddenly, Vernon walks in, holding a shotgun. The men raise their hands in surrender, but Vernon assures them that he's there to pawn his firearm. Alton scolds him for scaring them, then proceeds to offer only $20 for the gun. Vernon tries to haggle but ultimately takes the 20. Meanwhile, Raw Dog waits in a field, though he's agitated from hallucinations. Randy calls him, so the man shares that he's been hallucinating since they took a certain substance 3 days ago, having even seen Elvis Presley on the way to the field. He worries that his condition might make him a liability. Randy assures him that he'll be fine, but Raw Dog suddenly hallucinates the hood of his car erupting in flames. Just then, Vernon arrives, snapping him out of the hallucination. The man mentions that he had to pawn his shotgun for gas money to get there, and this angers Raw Dog, pointing out that they need the firearm to rob someone named Stanley. Vernon argues that they can just gang up on Stanley, but Raw Dog points out that their target makes substances, so he's likely armed and paranoid. Suddenly, a car hits Vernon. Randy comes out of the vehicle, accusing Vernon of stealing $80 from him. Raw Dog defends that the man couldn't have stolen his money since he just pawned his shotgun for gas money. Randy argues that Lamar saw Vernon stealing the money, but Raw Dog reminds him that the man was always lying and even criticizes Lamar for getting his haircut at Cook's. He then checks that Vernon's still alive, so Raw Dog insists on taking him to the hospital. However, Randy refuses to get in trouble for this, so he just urges his companion to go to Lamar to retrieve his money. Elsewhere, Lamar watches a news interview of an Elvis Presley impersonator, Ricky, at the county fair. Soon, Randy and Raw Dog arrive and confront him about the money. Caught, Lamar admits that he took it and already used it for substances. Hearing this, Raw Dog threatens him for getting Vernon run over. He then recalls that they can borrow a gun from Dawn, so he and Randy agree to get the weapon. Before leaving, Randy notices that Lamar has pocketed his Stick CD. Raw Dog insists on beating him up now, but Randy decides to leave, much to his dismay. The two then go to Dawn to borrow a gun, but he refuses. As they drive off, Randy complains about Dawn, but Raw Dog recalls that they borrowed the man's lawnmower and sold it. This is probably why Dawn doesn't trust them. Going off topic, Raw Dog starts rambling about why they were expected to dislike people of different races or beliefs. He just found out that celebrities he likes are of different religions, so he's conflicted about hating them. After giving it thought, Randy admits that he doesn't know the reason either. He just goes to supremacist meetings since there's good food there. The two agree that they don't really understand the hate, but they still want to attend the meetings for the food. Suddenly, Randy nearly hits another car, forcing him to swerve and crash into a backyard grave. In truth, however, they just swerved into an empty field, screaming for nothing. Coincidentally, Randy spots a set of bow and arrows and decides to take it. Just as they take the bow, they find a man answering Mother Nature's call amidst the woods. The man notices them, so Randy runs for it, though Raw Dog freezes in place. His friend pulls him into the vehicle before they drive off. Vernon soon wakes in the field just as the man arrives. He checks on him, so Vernon explains that some guys ran over him and left him for dead. The man offers to take him to the hospital, but Vernon decides to get revenge instead. Hearing this, the man offers his own firearm for his revenge, calling it his salvation. That night, Randy and Raw Dog position themselves in front of Stanley's house. The former scolds his friend for freezing earlier, but Raw Dog reveals that he saw an army of zombie women in the woods. Convinced that he's still hallucinating, he suggests resting before doing the robbery. However, Randy argues that tonight's fair will cover the noise of their heist, so they have to do this now. With no choice, the two don their masks for the job, though Randy's surprised to find Raw Dog wearing a clown mask. Raw Dog realizes that Randy's scared of clowns, so he starts teasing him. The two soon storm their target's house, but Stanley's already aiming a gun at them. Making matters worse, he recognizes their voices. As tension rises, the two robbers end up saying each other's names, and Stanley laughs at their foolish attempt. Raw Dog also gets tired of holding the bow, so he accidentally shoots Randy. Randy panics, but before they can do anything, Vernon walks in with his new weapon. He shoots Randy and the other two panic and hide, starting a shootout. This ultimately leads to Stanley's gas tanks exploding. Hours earlier, after Vernon pawned off his gun, Alton and Johnson continued their conversation about the Santa Claus figurine. Johnson accused his friend that he just didn't like that it was dark-skinned, but Alton defended that he wasn't like that. Johnson then changed the topic and asked why Alton was selling his car. car. The man recounted that a black truck nearly hit him days before, and when he cursed at the driver, the other man started chasing him. Now, whenever he drove his car, the truck appeared out of nowhere, seemingly wanting to run him down. With that, he decided to sell his car, not wanting the truck driver to recognize him again. Newlyweds Richard and Sandy arrived to pawn off their engagement ring to fund their honeymoon. Richard explained that his bank account just got hacked, and while he was certain that the bank would return his funds, he needed a few $1,000s to cover their honeymoon expenses. However, Alton could only offer $500 since he didn't have a lot of money in the shop. This disappointed Richard, but he got distracted by a ring that was on display. He asked to check it, and upon seeing the engraving, he became upset. He then told a worried Sandy to wait for him outside, and the confused woman left. With her away, Richard asked how Alton got the ring, recalling that it belonged to his first wife, Cindy, who disappeared 6 years ago. There was blood in their driveway on the night she disappeared, convincing Richard that she was kidnapped. Now, the day after his second wedding, he found his first wife's ring, so he demanded to know where it came from. Despite this, Alton asserted that he needed to file a police report before he could give information as to who sold the ring to him. Richard refused to relent, so he offered Sandy's $17,000 ring in exchange for Cindy's, along with his car and the information as to whom he got the ring from. As he considered this, Alton recalled that JJ was the one who sold him the ring, claiming that it was a family heirloom. Given that he purchased Cindy's ring for only $40, the pawnshop owner accepted Richard's offer. Hesitantly, he told Richard about JJ and where he worked. Without another word, Richard took Alton's car keys and left. Richard gave Sandy his car keys and told her to drive back home. However, she demanded an explanation, stressing that they were married so he couldn't keep secrets from her. Still, Richard got into Alton's car, announced that he already had a wife, and drove off. As Richard waited at a stoplight in Alton's car, the black truck that the pawnshop owner had been avoiding caught up with him. Unaware of the implications, Richard just continued to the restaurant where JJ worked. There, the waitress, Carly, ripped Ricky's poster that he'd set up on their door. The Elvis impersonator reminded her that his big show was tonight, but Carly insisted that it was against their rules to put up posters there. Ricky then offered the woman tickets to a show in exchange for his lunch, but she refused. Disappointed, the impersonator dug through his coins and found that he didn't even have enough to pay for his coffee. Pitying him, Carly took what he got as payment and left. Seeing this, Ricky's girlfriend, Teresa, decided to walk off. Ricky chased after her and reminded her that they were traveling the country while paying tribute to the king. However, Teresa was tired of going to boring places with no food and money while living in his stinky car. With that, she decided to take her chances alone. The lonesome Ricky then drove away just as Richard arrived at the restaurant. A mysterious Virgil tried to talk to Richard about his soul, but the pissed man ignored him before entering the establishment. Knowing that JJ was a cook, Richard headed straight for the kitchen despite Carly's protest. He confronted JJ about the ring, but seeing that he wasn't a cop, the cook told him to leave. In response, Richard hit him with a pan before dragging him out back where he beat him. Afraid, JJ finally confessed that he stole the ring from his uncle, Ben. With that, Richard went to Ben's house and asked about the ring. He recounted that the ring was originally stolen from him, but this morning, he found it at a pawn shop where JJ sold it. Ben then admitted that he won the ring in a poker game against Johnny Shaw. Ben refused to tell where Johnny was, believing that the man was good since he got his haircut at Doc's. With neither man backing down, the two started a fistfight which led to Ben pinning Richard on the ground. However, Richard grabbed a nearby brick and rammed it against his head. With his opponent down, Richard demanded to know where Johnny was, but Ben still refused, so he knocked him out. Richard then entered Ben's home to find clues. Soon, he found Johnny's address from a phone book along with a loaded shotgun. Before leaving, he also spotted the man's flail. Richard soon arrived at Johnny's home, shotgun in hand. He found the man watching adult content in the living room. Before approaching him, Richard noticed his refrigerator filled with photos of women. Among them was Cindy's, reminding him of when he took that same photo of her. Sure that this man was involved in her disappearance, Richard aimed the gun at Johnny's head, ending his private time. He asked him about the ring, adding that he'd seen Cindy's photo on the refrigerator. Johnny tried to deny any knowledge, so Richard pressed the gun to his neck. Scared, Johnny claimed that he found both the ring and the photo in a pocketbook. Unconvinced, Richard knocked him out. Johnny soon woke up bound with fishing hooks on his face. He cried that he didn't know what happened to Cindy, but Richard showed him Ben's flail along with a knife and hammer he found at the house. He threatened threatened to get creative with the tools, but Johnny continued denying knowledge about Cindy. Pissed, Richard used the hammer on him, then demanded to know the truth. Desperate, Johnny finally revealed that Cindy was alive, promising to tell him where she was if Richard let him go. Surprised, Richard agreed to this deal, so Johnny told him that Cindy was at the silo, whose keys were on his deer ornament. His captor fetched the keys and hurried to the silo, leaving Johnny bound. In the silo, Richard did find a traumatized Cindy, who was trapped inside a cage. He assured her that she was okay now, but the woman was too terrified to leave. When her husband tried to comfort her, the woman snarled at him. Seeing what had become of his wife, Richard went back to Johnny and tormented him to death. He then returned to Cindy and pulled her into an embrace, promising that he'd help her. However, Cindy refused to leave since she was now number one. Thus, Johnny gave her her own silo and let her watch TV in his house. This has Richard realizing that there were more captives, so he checked the other silo and found the other women. Horrified, he started freeing them before taking Cindy into the car. However, the woman was too brainwashed and kept arguing that she and the others weren't allowed to leave. Hoping to remind her of their life together, Richard showed her the ring. He placed the ring on her before heading to the driver's seat, not noticing her removing it immediately. The two drove away, but Cindy was still worried about Johnny. Richard told her that he killed her captors so she was safe. Instead of being happy, Cindy mourned for Johnny and even berated her husband for killing him. This sent Richard over the edge, so he ranted about how the man abducted and tormented her. This, however, angered Cindy, so she threw away her ring and grabbed Richard's knife, stabbing him repeatedly. Because of this, Richard nearly hit the car where Randy and Raw Dog were that afternoon. The couple's car hit a tree, and when Richard looked up, he found that Cindy was dead. Desperate, Richard called Sandy to ask her to pick him up. However, the scorned woman hung up on him, leaving Richard to die. Nearby, JJ was riding his bike home when he stumbled upon the ring Cindy threw out onto the road. A few hours earlier, Ricky also visited the pawn shop. He boasted about his show at the fair but revealed that he wasn't getting paid until after the shows and needed the money now. With that, he offered to pawn off his medallion, stressing that it belonged to the real Elvis Presley. After checking the piece, Alton gave him $200 for it. Now with money to spare, Ricky searched for a barber shop but couldn't decide whether to go to Doc's or Cook's. A crowd gathered behind him, and Ricky assumed that they were Elvis fans, unaware that the town judged him for his barbershop choice. When he finally decided to go to Doc's, some of the people cheered. There, Doc set him on his seat and Ricky insisted that he only needed to get his sideburns trimmed evenly. He refused to get his hair cut since he needed the look for his show at the fair. Despite this, Doc proceeded to shave part of his sideburns, which angered him. The disappointed Ricky walked off, but not before being forced to pay for the shave. He went ahead to Cook's barbershop, ignoring the crowd of people who began arguing about who was the best barber. Cook set him on the chair and Ricky asked him to turn the news on to show him how he was interviewed earlier for his show. He then rambled about how he went to Doc but he butchered his sideburns. Hearing this, Cook realized that he was Ricky's second choice, so he sliced part of his hair on the back of his neck and charged him for the cut. Ricky called the whole town crazy before driving off. With no choice, he tried to fix his own hair using glue and a fake mustache. That night, Virgil found Ricky, noting that he caused a ruckus at the barbershop earlier. Ricky complained that it was crazy how the townsfolk were intensely loyal to their barbers, but Virgil believed that this was how they kept the balance in their town. Virgil then asked if Ricky felt that life was unfair. The impersonator said yes, so Virgil offered to give him everything he wanted in exchange for his soul. Surprised, Ricky looked around and found demonic signs around him, making him realize that he was at a crossroads with the devil. Ricky excused himself to call his mother, revealing that he just spoke to the devil. His mother began rambling about how she always assumed that Elvis sold his soul to gain success, and now Ricky was a believer. However, he also believed that Elvis had the best life on earth. His mother forbade him from selling his soul, but Ricky admitted that he was considering it. He then hung up the phone and told Virgil that he needed time to think about his offer. Ricky proceeded to do his show at the fair, but no one was impressed by his performance. His radio and fireworks even fail, while the fake sideburns fall off. As he was about to walk off stage, Virgil appeared among the audience. Without hesitation, Ricky declared that he accepted the man's offer. Suddenly, his equipment started working again and his haircut suddenly became cleaner. Backup singers appeared to help him, so Ricky began performing again, this time with more confidence. The show attracted a bigger crowd. At the same time, The women from Johnny's cages walked into the fair, apparently having been the zombie women that Raw Dog saw earlier. One of the stall owners at the fair pitied the women, so he began cloaking them with the flags he was selling. The women then walked towards the stage, and the audience assumed they were part of the show. The show became so moving that even Doc and Cook decided to end their rivalry. It was around this time that Vernon began a shootout with Stanley, and when they accidentally ignited the gas tanks, the blaze looked like fireworks that highlighted Ricky's performance. Having given the best performance of his lifetime, Ricky enjoys the applause from the crowd before stepping off stage. The event organizer, Jerry, then offers to have him perform for his county fairs across 8 states. Ricky happily agrees. On top of this, Teresa returns, having seen his performance. She offers to get back together and go home with him, but Ricky rejects her now that he's on his path to success. Pissed, Teresa shouts to her ex that she can find another man. Hearing this, Johnny, who's apparently still alive, walks up to her and offers her a spot in his home. He then orders his brainwashed captives to get into his van, bringing Teresa along with him. Meanwhile, at the pawn shop, Johnson decides to go home just as Harry walks in, looking to buy a baseball bat. Alton offers one to him, only for Harry to reveal that he is the driver of the black truck. He berates the man for selling his car to trick him, so he beats him with a bat he hasn't even paid for. Luckily, JJ arrives and knocks him down with a shovel. Alton then gets up and grabs his shotgun, but JJ dissuades him from shooting the man. With this, he threatens Harry to leave, and the man does. With that out of the way, JJ pawns off Cindy's ring again and gets another $40 for it. Alton then locks up and goes home, ending today's story of his pawn shop.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.